right. You know what time it is. It's time for the often imitated, but never duplicated, weekly watch list. Option addict style. So, trading addicts, you guys ready to kick off another interesting week? I know I am. I've got a lot of setups here that make me a little more comfortable heading into tomorrow's session. So let's dig our heels in and let's get started with a little bit of market analysis. Last week was pretty interesting, to say the least. If you break down here into a 30-day chart, we were paying really close attention to this pattern here of rising lows, which gave way about midway last week. However, there was that nice government-sponsored sharp recovery that took place that led the S&P right back up to the 830, getting pretty close to the 840 range. And from that point on, we've just kind of stalled. And what I'm looking at here looks to be almost like an inverse head and shoulders pattern, which had me pretty excited as we came up into tomorrow's trading. However, I don't know if you noticed or not, but S&P futures trading down at 806, 807. Dow futures down about 100 points. So looks like we're going to open a little bit lower, which will more than likely invalidate this pattern. The question now is do we break through that strong 800 level here on the S&P, or do we not? And because we spent a lot of time and we broke through the support level, I'm thinking, well, we're not off to a good start. So it's likely if prices don't hold around S&P 810, then we're likely heading down towards 800. And what happens from there? We'll continue to call the play-by-play, but it's likely to get a little choppy. One other thing I would like to throw out there is what's been going on in the VIX. And despite the S&P breaking down, the VIX has been breaking down as well. And I don't know if you've been following this, but we've been talking a lot about this lately, and the fact that the VIX has a nice little series of rising lows. A breakdown on Thursday, and then what looked to be almost like a retest here on Friday, but prices ran back up into this range. Now, to me, I start to get really bearish once we break out of this pattern to the upside here, which is going to be a VIX, probably priced around 46, 47. But until that happens, I think that's a lot of noise. And what I'm looking for is a confirmation out of the VIX here, which will likely take place as the S&P breaks beneath 800 when and if that happens. So because of the way things are shaping up here, I've got an awful lot of interesting setups here. We're going to start off with a couple of price patterns that ought to help make the week profitable. First off, we're going to ticker symbol NSH. Not the most liquid stock on the planet, but it's starting to pick up a little bit of action here. There's some shares being traded. Anyway, what I'm noticing here in this particular stock, one of the best looking ascending triangle patterns out there right now. So, to me, I really don't get interested in this until it breaks north of about 20. If it gets 20, I think you look to buy this, and there's a pretty interesting price target, which happens to be about 4 points. Put this thing up at 23.24 within about a month's worth of time. Next is ticker symbol AVAV. Same thing, good looking ascending triangle pattern here. Tried to break out on Friday, didn't quite happen. A breakout of about, let's call it 40.5 is where I start to get interested. So nice series of rising lows, equal highs. Tried to break out on Friday. Let's see if it happens here on Tuesday. Next is Panera, PNRA. What I'm looking at here on Panera Bread is a descending triangle. The action we saw here on Thursday, though, had me kind of curious about this pattern. I don't know if this is a cause yet for, to me, it looks like a false breakout. What we should see is a breakout to the downside. So, no trade quite yet, but if prices start to break below 45, this trade gets very interesting, in which I'm likely to take a short position. All the volume that was spent buying this thing up on Thursday also happened to turn around and sell this thing back off come Friday. So pretty interesting if prices start to break down here beneath 45 heading into this week. Next is Honeywell. Not the most exciting stock out there, but still a nice little descending triangle nonetheless. So as an anticipatory trade, if it holds here at 33, I love it. However, if you want to go the safe route, wait for a print below 31, at which point this gets pretty interesting as a nice little breakdown trend reversal. Next is Gilead, G-I-L-D, and what I'm looking at here is it's kind of an awkward looking pattern, but if you switch this over to a line chart, it's going to look a whole lot prettier. A little bit early to call this too, but what I'm seeing is a nice looking kind of a cup and handle almost, about a 50% retracement off these highs, right at support. So you could look at this as a buy the dip pattern, but I'm also looking at this as a potential nice little rounded bottom plus a little handle, cup and handle pattern as an anticipatory trade. It's pretty cool here at 50. As a confirmed trade, you don't take it until it prints about 53. That's where the breakout happens. So but a good looking pattern here nonetheless. Next is this little rinky-dink stock I found, CBEY. And volume's kind of been dissipating here, but you know, it trades a good number of shares on average. But what I'm looking at is just a nice little consolidation of prices here. Call this a pennant, call this a triangle, whatever you want to call it. But look for a breakout either way, and you should see a pretty sharp move. To me, it looks like this is more than likely going to be a continuation pattern, but I'm not going to press any bets early until we see a breakout. Next is CMTL. For some reason, this stock keeps coming up on a lot of the scans I'm running, and I think this is why. It's because prices look like a nice little inverse head and shoulder pattern. To me, this gets interesting right when it gets to about, let's call it 41.5, maybe even 42 if you want to see some confirmation here. Volume doesn't look all that great. That's because it's been really contracting as this pattern develops, but on average, this thing trades about over 500,000 shares, so it's fine with me. Next, CRL, Charles River Labs. Check this out, right? To me, it looks like we've got the nice little ascending triangle here. A breakout, price is held right above 27 throughout the end of the week, and they're starting to get running here. So what looks like to me is a little bit of a retest, and prices are off and running again, which they should start working towards their price objective, which on this pattern here was about a 3.5 point move to the upside, which puts prices right up at about $30. Next is CBRL, which is the old Cracker Barrel. And I like this nice, clean, tight little pennant right through here. Prices, to me, need to break out and print right about in the $19 range, $19.5. Once that happens, we're likely to see prices run all the way up here and retest the resistance line of this old triangle, which puts us right about, what, 22? Could be a pretty good trade. Also, watch this as a reversal, though, too. If it wants to break down, prices are likely to jump down here and touch 16. Next is ticker symbol TSYS, and watching this stock here lately, and it's a cheap stock, so this will be my under $10 darling this week. And what I like about this one is also a nice little cup and handle pattern. So rounded bottom right from the highs up at about 9, rounded them out down at about 6, came back up, sputtered right around 9, and then finally broke out with some pretty big volume here on Friday. So if prices dip a little bit lower, let's say they get a little bit closer to about $9, I think you can buy this as a nice little retest of these old highs. Next is Hess, which you guys all know I've got a position in right now. We took an anticipatory trade right here on Friday morning as prices held on to support. The crack spread still favors that of the refiners, so I've got an anticipatory trade in here. I welcome you to jump in because the pattern here looks pretty sweet as an anticipatory trade. Use support here to manage risk, but it looks to me like prices are likely to break out towards the end of this week. Next, we're going to look at the agriculture space, and we're looking at AGU, which you guys already know I've got a position here as well. Not trying to tout my own position, but what we're looking at here was a nice little cup and handle as well. A nice little bit of a consolidation right at about 38, 37.5 before prices finally did break out. So if they dip here on Tuesday morning, in my opinion, you got to buy that if prices hold at about 38, 39. And buy that dip as prices start to work towards their objective, which, this is a pretty big pattern. This is almost about, 8 points? So not suggesting it runs there in a hurry, but agriculture has been really strong. Also, gold prices are holding up, which I think you got to be watching AEM. As an anticipatory trade to the upside, I kind of like it here right around 53. So long as that holds, I think you got to buy this to the upside. As long as gold prices are trading the way they are, to me this looks like a pretty easy trade. Next, going off into semis is CREE, ticker symbol CREE. You guys know I've been pretty hot about these stocks lately. They've been holding up really well over the last couple of days. But I like CREE here as just another little ascending triangle breakout. Price target 24. Next is ticker symbol LAZ, one of the few financials out there that I do like. What I'm looking at here is a nice little flag pattern. So, this is going to be a really risky group to trade, but, we've been watching the financials here lately. If the XLF or some of these stocks start to trade higher, I've got my eyes on Morgan Stanley. Of course, I've got some call positions there, and Goldman. As long as some of those stocks hold up here, I'd be watching LAZ for a breakout, which also happens to be right here, just kind of holding off around some of its prior highs. Next here, I've got CXG, which is one of the few descending triangles that I've been watching. Nice little case here of lower highs equal lows, or you got a breakdown and a retest. So if prices roll over from here, I think this is a pretty good opportunity to get short the stock. with the pretty nice price objective. Last but not least, Hansen's. We've been watching this one for quite a while. But, to me, this looks like a nice little ace-inning triangle that's just waiting to break out. So keep an eye on this one heading into next week as well. It's been holding on to this lower trend line for quite a long period of time, and as long as it stands, this thing goes higher. So aside from my price pattern, as is my usual routine, I've got some buy the dip and sell the rip candidates and some potential breakouts and breakdowns. So check those out. And as usual, if you want to see some follow-up on these or see what trades we actually place, please visit us at www.tradingaddicts.com. This has been The Option Addict. That's been my watch list. Thanks for watching. Take care.
Listen, you're in a privileged position to learn a thing or two. Keep your mouth shut and your eyes open.